Shabbat Shalom. So this past week I had the pleasure of 4 tickets to the Pistons game. So a friend of mine and I, we each took one of our boys and had a father-son night out at the Pistons game. But of course, before we went to the Pistons game, we stopped for some dinner. We went out to Cravings. The bill at Cravings, this wonderful kosher restaurant, came to a total of $50.50. Not cheap to go out to dinner at Cravings. But nevertheless, of course, we were there, the cashier said, your total comes to 50-50. I said, 50-50. Maybe we should go play the lottery. 50-50. So we made the joke, we dismissed it, and sure enough, then we get on the road, we head to the Pistons game. The very first people who greet us there at the Pistons game at the Palace. Welcome to the Palace. Would you like to buy a ticket for our 50-50 lottery? How many would have bought that ticket? It's a sign from God, right? Now, as I've come to learn, God does speak to us with signs, but not every coincidence is a sign from God. And so this last week, as we continue to reflect on the terrorist attacks, including the especially anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Paris just last week, I have remarked about how so many of us have seen that as a clear sign from God. Many of us have been saying, well, the Jews of Paris, the Jews of France, should make Aliyah to Israel. It's time. The signs are clear. And in fact, the last 2 years, from which country have more Jews come to Israel than any other country in the world? France. And in Israel, they now have something that they call Boeing Aliyah. What is Boeing Aliyah? It's where the family from France moves to Israel, but the primary breadwinner flies back each week to France to continue working and flies home for the weekend. The Jews of France are clearly seeing the proverbial writing on the wall. They're seeing the signs that it's time for them to move to Israel. And I'm sure the Jews of the rest of Europe are starting to take note maybe just a little bit. Of course, if you were here last Shabbos, you know that my response to those signs in France were to encourage all of us to do mitzvahs. When the world sends its very clear message of anti-Semitism to us, the Jewish response is not to rise up in violence, not to rise up with guns and weapons, but to rise up and do Jewish. That's what we do. We do ritual mitzvot, we reach out with tzedakah, we try to make the world a better place by helping those who are in need. This is what we Jews do in response to those signs. So we can make Aliyah. We can do Jewish. Now, interestingly enough, Rebecca's response to seeing the signs of that which took place in France, Rebecca, my wife, was to take our passports out and make sure they were all up to date. It was a powerful response. We see the signs. And we've seen the signs. And I can't help but note the quotation that was going around this week in response to the tragedies. Someone said the Jews of France before World War II, they saw the signs as well. The pessimists moved to New York. The optimists went to Auschwitz. It's a question of how we respond to the signs we see. This week we read from Parashat Va'era, the very second portion of the book of Exodus. And it's all about signs. We read the first 7 of the 10 plagues. And what's interesting is to find out for whom are those plagues. The Torah says pretty clearly that this should be a sign to Pharaoh and the Egyptians. And that's why as Rambam, as Moshe ben Nachman comes to teach us, this is why God hardens Pharaoh's heart over and over again. God didn't want the Egyptians simply to let us go out of fear, out of punishment, out of just fear that something bad is going to happen. God wanted the Egyptians to let us go because the Egyptians recognized God's power. But there's also something in there, the very beginning of our Torah portion, that alludes to the fact that the plagues were also for the Israelites. And now our Torah doesn't doubt that the Israelites, despite the oppression and despite the bondage of 400 years, still had a sense of belief in God. But they were, as the Torah tells us, they were kotzer ruach. They were lacking in real spirit. Because of 400 years of oppression, they didn't have the spirit to truly resist. And even amidst the first plague, the second plague, see that God was acting in their lives. They were kotzer ruach. They were lacking the true faith that God is going to send signs that the time has come for redemption. Now, if we bring it back to our Torah portion, we know the message of the Torah is clear. God will redeem us and bring us back to the promised land. And indeed, the Jews of France, they've seen those signs, and they're starting to move to the promised land. The Jews of the rest of Europe are also starting to take note. They're starting to question, maybe there are signs for them as well. And maybe, like in our Torah portion this week, they too should begin to think about getting up and leaving the country that they've known for so long and heading to the promised land. But what about us Jews in America? What signs are we seeing? Thank God for us, life is very different from that of Europe. Now, if we're students of 2,000 years of history, then we too might be pessimists and recognize that anti-Semitism might come our way eventually. And maybe the simple solution is just to get up and move to Israel, and that is a solution. But I'm not sure it's the solution. And as I look at the rest of Tanakh, the rest of the Hebrew Bible, even finally once we've made it to the land of Israel, the mission of the Jew changes. And our mission then becomes to be Or LaGoyim, to be a light unto the nations. How we live our lives are supposed to help others elevate their lives. And so as I think about this portion, as I remember the Exodus from Egypt, I'm reminded of Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim. Every Friday night when we say Kiddush, we talk about this reminder of the Exodus from Egypt. And we talk about the Exodus. And so if I can impose on you, if you'll put your arm just in front of you and squeeze your fist. Just squeeze your fist tight like that. If we look at the signs around us in America, we see a people burdened by technology. Constantly on the go. We're working 24/7. Now, don't let go. I see you starting to relax your fist. Don't let go. We're working 24/7. There's a constant threat. There's a constant fear. What's going on in the world? What's going on with the economy? What's going on internally? And we have that fear, we have that anxiety, and we're stressed, and we're going nonstop, and it keeps on going, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And it feels like we're exhausted, and it feels like our spirits are kotzer ruach. It feels like we're lacking in spirit, even though we have belief. We're running out of the energy, just like our ancestors did in Egypt so long ago. And then we come to this Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim. This day, this is a reminder of the Exodus from Egypt. We come to Shabbat, and if we really celebrate Shabbat, keep your fist tight. If we really celebrate Shabbat, what do? We let go. And that's Shabbat. When we can let go of the tension. When we can let go of the anxiety and the fear and the stress and the exhaustion. We can come be together with friends. We can sing amazing songs. We can have a l'chaim. We can eat lunch together. We can be together. We can relax. We can breathe. And most importantly, we can be with our families. Because we finally relaxed. We made Shabbos a priority. This is Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim. This is our reminder of our freedom from bondage. Because here in America we have the ability, thank God, to let go. To celebrate Shabbos if we truly make that choice. But even more so as we celebrate Shabbat. As we open our hands from the stress of the week. We have another sign. And if you want, you can put your hand out just like I have my hand out. We have another sign. Our Torah portion begins with God speaking to Moses. And God seeks to establish a relationship with Moses. And God does so not in some intimidating way, God seeks to build that bridge. God seeks to strengthen his relationship with Moses by simply introducing himself. And God says to Moses, Ani Adonai. God doesn't say, I am the Lord, which is unfortunately the translation that most often happens. God says, I am Adonai. And God introduces himself by his personal proper name, as if coming up to someone and simply saying, I am Aaron. You are? Oh, nice to meet you, Eddie. God reaches out his hand to Moses and introduces himself and creates that personal connection. Do me a favor, if you'll turn to someone behind you or next to you, if you don't know them especially, and just reach out your hand, introduce yourself. Wish them a Shabbat Shalom. I think for us in America, the signs are clear. The signs tell us our slavery to technology, our servitude to capitalism have gone amok. Like our ancestors, we are kotzer ruach, we're lacking in spirit. And the way we Shabbat v'yinafash, the way we refresh and renew that spirit, is to celebrate Shabbat, the Sabbath, together as a family, as a community. And once we have renewed our spirit, once we have renewed our strength, then we can do, as Americans, as American Jews, we can do something that perhaps no other country in the world can truly do. We can reach out across aisles. We can reach out across roads. We can reach out across oceans. Create friendships. Create relationships, one-on-one, as individuals, just like God did with Moses in our Torah portion this morning. The world is a tough place. And so many people are working hard to make an us versus them conversation. But if we truly reach out, if we truly reach in, then together we can make this a world of peace, a world of blessing, a world of friendship, a world of shalom. May this be God's will, and let us say together, Amen.